Hello everyone, hope everyone is doing well. Today we are going to learn about budget sets. We are going to construct it and then we are going to see what factors can change the shape of the budget set. First, let's define what is a budget set. So in short, the definition of budget set is basically it's a graphical illustration of different combinations of two items that we can consume for a given amount of income. So what this tells us is that if we are given a certain amount of income, we can basically see using the budget set what are the different quantities of each of the two items that we can consume. So for this, we need certain information. The first thing we need is we need to know what the income is. So let's take an example. Let's say we're given that our income is $500 a week or a month. So this person earns $500, and with that, let's say the person can buy only two items. And because we are drawing a two-dimensional graph, we just can only deal with two items. Mathematically, we can add many more items, but just for illustration purposes, we're going to assume that with this income, we can only purchase two items. Now, let's say one item is bread, and the other item is butter. So the person can consume bread or butter. In order to know how much of bread or butter we can consume, we need to know what the price of bread is and also what the price of butter is. So let's assume that the price of bread is $5 a loaf, and the price of butter is, let's assume it's $2. Now with this information, we can now draw a budget set. So let's assume this is our starting of our graph. This is the y-axis and x-axis. Now we can put bread in the y-axis or in the x-axis. It does not matter. Certain numbers will change a little bit, but the overall interpretation will remain the same. So let's say that bread is in the y-axis and butter is in the x-axis. So now before we start, let's look at our income that we have, which is $500. So let's look at this table. So initially, let's say we spend all our income on bread. So we have $500. We're spending none on butter. Now, with $500, if the price of bread is $5 per loaf, then we can purchase 500 divided by 5, which gives us 100. So the amount of bread we can purchase is 100 units of bread or 100 loaves of bread. And of course, since we didn't spend any on butter, so we will get no butter. Now I can do the same thing. I can go buy 0 units of bread, spend all my income on butter. Then the amount of bread I get is 0, but the amount of butter, now each unit of butter is $2. So if I spend all 500 on butter, then divided by 2, I get 250. This number, amount of butter I get is 250. Now I can try different combinations of income here. I could say, let's say I spend $400 on bread and $100 on butter. If I spend $400 on bread, price of bread is 5, so I can see that it is 400 divided by 5, and I get 80 units here. Now, if I spend 100 units on butter, or $100 on butter, I should get 50 butter. And I can try different combinations here. As long as these two numbers equal to 500, I should be able to construct a line. So now from here, let's see, if I look at bread, we use the income and the prices to construct this table. So we constructed this part, and now we are going to use this part to draw our budget set. So let's look at the first part. The first number is combination 100 bread, but 0 amount of butter. So I'll go up here. Let's say this is 25, 50, 75, 100. So then one combination of output that or goods that we could consume is 100 units of bread and no butter. Conversely, the other kind we can consume is 250 units of butter but no bread. And finally, we can also consume another unit here, 50 and 80. So if I go 50 units of butter, and I can go up to 80 units of bread, which would be somewhere here. So that is another point that we could consume. So then I can draw my budget set, which is going to be this green line. Now, this set, it's nice. It's a nice line. What is it telling us? So the green line right here, this line is going to tell us the maximum amount we can consume given the income we have. So this points on the green line tells us the maximum amount we can consume given the income we have and the prices we have in the market. So now what about a point inside? So let's say a point like here. A point like here is definitely, it is affordable for this person. A person can consume this amount, and we can check. Let's say this is this was 25 units of bread, and this is, let's move it a little to the left. So we have 100 units of butter. Is this affordable? Well, 25 units of bread, if each is $5, then I can spend 25 times 5, which is $125 to buy that amount of bread. What about butter? Well, each butter costs $2. I can buy 100 units of butter, so 100 times 2, which is 200. If I add these two up, I get $325. I have a lot of money left over, so I could move either to the right, or I could move upwards, or this way, and I could consume more using more income until I reach this point. What about points outside here? Well, those may not be affordable. So let's say we take a point like 25 and 300. So 25 units of bread times 5 is 125. What about 300? So if I want to consume 300 units of butter, times 2 would be 600. That would give me 725. So that is telling me that this combination here is unaffordable. So we should not be able to consume this amount. So the green line right here is giving us the maximum amount we can consume given the income. So from here we can easily see what will happen if income changes. What if income goes up from $500 to $800? So if income goes up from $500 to $800, we have to redo the table, but we can see that even without doing any calculation, we can see that with more income, if prices are the same, we are able to consume more of bread and butter. So our budget set will therefore get bigger or increase in size. So this, what will it look like? So now we have this number. So if I spend all $800 on bread, so now we are able to consume 160 units of bread, but no butter. What if I spend all my money on butter but not on bread? Then I cannot buy any bread, and the amount of butter I can buy is 400. Finally, what if I spend $500 on bread? Then 500 divided by 5 gives me 100 bread. And if I spend 300 units on butter, or $300 on butter, each butter is $2, so I get 150 units of butter. So if I were to draw it, I would get a line like this. And this is going to give me my budget set. This is supposed to be on 160. And if I were to plot this line, or this combination, where would that point fall? So it should be, it's 100 units of bread, so somewhere here, and 150 units of butter, so somewhere here. So it should be a point right here. So as incomes go up, if we were actually to superimpose them, there was going to be a parallel shift upwards. If income goes down, then there's a parallel shift downwards. So now we can afford both the items. If we compared the green line with this one, so we would see that the previous budget line that we used in the previous example is going to look like this. Now, points like here are now affordable, and points up here are no longer, well, were not affordable and still are not affordable, and points on the black line are the maximum we can afford given the new income, which is $800. What happens when price changes? Let's say that price of bread, instead of $5, price of bread has changed to $10. So let's say income stays still at $500, which is what we had before, but now price of bread has gone up from $5 to $10. And price of butter is still at $2. So in that case, how would the budget line change? So we wouldn't have this old one. Let's take the green line. So we have here bread. So before we had $500 and each bread was $5. So we could buy a maximum of 100 units of bread. Now, since price is $10 per loaf of bread, we can only purchase, which is 50 units of bread. Since the price of butter is still at $2, so then our new budget set is going to look like. So this is then showing us that our budget set has shrunk. It has gone inwards this way. So before, points like here that were, well, affordable, but we could have done better, now is no longer affordable. Only these points on the red line are affordable. Similarly, if price of bread actually fell, let's say it fell to, instead of $10 or $5, let's say it fell to $1, then we could buy 500 units of bread. So then we could go all the way up there, and then we could see that our budget set would be way out there, hitting the y-axis at 500. So then we could afford even more. With income increasing, our budget sets can move upwards or downwards. So it could move outwards this way or downwards based on if it's an increment increase or decrease. If one of the price changes, the other item stays still at this point, and if there's a price increase, the budget set moves inwards that way. If there's a price decrease, the budget set goes that way. Now, another important thing we get to look at using budget set is what we would call the slope of this line. And the slope gives us some additional information about the budget set. How would we find the slope? So we can go back to our original exercise. We have income of 500 units or $500. Price of bread is $5 a loaf. Price of butter is $2 a stick of butter. Now, if I were to find the slope is pretty easy. It is rise over run. In our case, it is going to be the rise is 100. Run is 250. Since it's a downward sloping line, we need a negative value. So then we get 0.4. Another way of doing it, and this would be a little easier to see, let's say instead of writing it this way, I write it out, instead of 100, I write this as 500 over 5. So basically 500 is the income, 5 is the price of bread. So also I can write this as I over, let's say, P of Y. Same thing, this one would be I over P of X. So then I can write my rise over run would be I over P of Y divided by I over P of X. And there's got to be a negative sign somewhere. So then, if we look at that, and we simplify this, we end up getting Px over Py. And if I plug in the values, so Px here is the price of butter, which is $2. Py, which is price of bread, is $5. So if I plugged it in, it should be negative 2 over 5, which I still get 0.4. So this number has a significance. It's telling us that if I reduce the consumption of butter by 1 unit, I can increase the consumption of bread by 0.4 units. Or let me just write it down. So the slope of negative 0.4 here implies that if I reduce the consumption of butter by 1 unit, I can use the money saved, which is $2, and if I could buy 0.4 units of bread. I can also do it the other way around. If I reduce the consumption of bread by 1 unit, then I can save up $5. With that $5, then I can buy 2.5 units of butter. So the slope, and just looking at the price, we can look at the ratio of price and we can see what the slope of the budget set is and what's the rate of substitution between those two goods. Finally, let's look at another interesting example. Let's say that we have the same idea as here, but now supposing we get discounts when we buy more than a certain amount. We have income of 500 and we have bread and butter. Price of bread is $5 for the first, let's say, 50 units. Then, so if I buy the first 50 units, I pay $5, but after that, for the 51st unit till the 100th unit, if I want to buy more, then I just pay $2. So I get a discount if I buy in bulk. Price of butter, let's say, remains at $2. So this one, I mean, the idea is still the same. We use the same method as before. But here, let us first look at how do we construct a budget set. So here we have 500. So let's say we are spending, let's start with butter first. So we don't spend any amount on bread, but we spend $500 on butter. So the amount of bread we get is 0, and the amount of butter we get is $250, just like before. Now let's say we spend $250 on bread and $250 on butter. So as we see that for the first 50 units of bread we have to spend $5 per unit. So we buy 50 amount of bread that we buy, and butter will be $250 divided by 2, which comes up to be $125. Now let's go to a little interesting part. So then from here, let's say we're spending 300 units on bread, 200 units on butter. So butter is easy. It should be just 200 divided by 2, which equals to 100 units. Bread here gets a little interesting. So the first $250 that we spent, we were able to buy the bread at $5 per unit. So for the first $250 that we spent, we bought the bread at $5 a unit. And the amount of bread we bought was 50. Now for the next $50 that we spent, we can buy the bread at $2 a unit. We have 50 plus the additional 50 that we're spending on bread divided by the price of bread that we have, which gives us 75 units of bread. Let's look at another example. So let's say we spent 400 units on bread, or $400 on bread, $100 on butter. Butter is easy. Butter we see is 100 divided by 2, which gives us 50. Now what about bread? So first $250, let's write it this way, $250, we were able to buy the bread at $5 per piece, plus the next $150, we are buying the bread at $2 a piece. So the first $50, for the first $250, we could buy 50 units of bread. For the next $150, we can buy 75 units of bread. So we are able to buy 125 units of bread. Finally, let's say if we have $500 we spend on bread, 0 on butter, we get 0 butter, and the amount of bread we get is, again, 250 divided by 5 for the first 250, plus 250, the next 250, we're spending 2. That gives us 175 units. So what does this budget set look like? So we have our bread and butter. So let's write butter down here as we did before. And bread is up here. So for $500 that we spent on bread, we were able to buy 175 units of bread. So let's write 25. Let's say this is 175. So we were able to buy 175 units of bread and no butter. Let's draw the other one. This is an easy one. So we spent $500 on butter. So we were able to buy 250 butter. Now let's go up to the middle. Supposing we spent $250 on bread, $250 on butter. So we were able to buy 125 units of butter and 50 units of bread. So which would be somewhere. So for the first 50 units, we have this line. Then for the next units that we keep on purchasing, let's say we spent this amounts on bread and butter respectively, we can get 100 units of bread, but 75 units of or sorry, we can get 100 units of butter, but 75 units of bread. So let's say this is 100, and then this is 75. So if we plotted that, we would find the shape of the line to be something like that. So here, the budget set has a kink. So this is telling us for this amount and this amount, price of bread is $5. And then we said for all these amount, that additional amount that we are buying, the price of bread is at $2. So initially, if we looked at the green line before, if we extended it, it would be somewhere here. Now, because we're getting a discount, so the budget set from this point onward swivels to this level. So we can actually purchase more items in this region because of the discount we are getting. Now we can do the same thing if we had maybe a discount on butter. So first, probably we spend for 70 units, we buy at $2, and then the next units are bought at $1 each or something like that. But this gives us some examples. So we see this a lot, maybe, when we are bulk buying. If we buy a smaller amount, we get a certain price. If we buy a larger amount, we get a discount. Or maybe we see like price increases as we buy more. So in that case, we can easily see that instead of swiveling out like this, if there is the price increase, if we buy more, then it basically swivels in like this. Hopefully this was beneficial. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a good day, and I will see you at a later lecture. Goodbye.